Hi, welcome to episode 2. The why and the hypothesis behind it. As a product manager or as an entrepreneur, you may come to a point when you decide it's time to introduce a new product to the world, or your company may decide it for you. When it happens, it's a magical moment. Your future customers are going to enjoy a new product, a new experience, or an additional value that wasn't there before. You consider all the possibilities in your head. You imagine the joy of your users. Your head fills with ideas as for the feature that you plan to deliver. Can you feel the excitement? You should be excited indeed. As an entrepreneur, your journey typically begins with the ambition to introduce a new product to the world. But as a product manager, you may pass a role or two, or even more, before you are handed the opportunity to lead a new initiative and take a product from 0 to 1. So, when it happens, you should seize this opportunity with both hands and do your best not to mess it up. My advice in this post should hopefully assist you to stay out of trouble. Now, as I noted in my previous post, when considering a new feature or a product, you should almost always start with the why. If you were asked by your company to lead this initiative, you must make sure you understand why the company believes this product is needed and what is the unique value of it. If you come up with this initiative on your own, that's great, but it also carries additional risks because you may be in love with your idea and therefore be less objective. Therefore, it's important in both cases to replace the intuition or belief behind this initiative with data as fast as you can. Now, this post won't teach you everything you need to know for how to take products from 0 to 1. For that, we'll need more than one post. In this post, we are going to cover merely the first step you should take when an opportunity to work on a new product shows itself. Let's dive in. The hypothesis behind the initiative. Whether it's someone in your company who convinces the board, or you have done so yourself, which is very remarkable if this is the case, you must sit down for a second and make sure you understand the hypothesis behind the why. What do I mean by that? Most new initiatives and products rely on some hypothesis or assumptions as for why they will be successful. Those may be assumptions about evolving market trends, the value proposition of the new product, or who is your ideal customer profile, ICP. No matter how confident you are or your company are that those assumptions will become reality, it's crucial to pause, even if it takes a full day, and list them out. For instance, if your company provides storage solutions and you believe customers will favor fast storage solutions even if they need to pay 30% premium on that, well, that's an assumption. It could be that you already have some customers who are knocking on your door asking for that, and therefore you claim that this is no longer an assumption. You could be right. However, from my experience, it's more likely that you have one big customer who was asking about this new product and maybe a few smaller ones, and you were rushing to the conclusion that there is a huge demand. You need to be really careful here. At the end of the day, it's very rare that a new product doesn't rely on some business assumptions. So be highly suspicious if you gave it some thought and came up empty. An assumption or an hypothesis are no longer such only if you have enough data to prove them and turn them into facts. 3 or 5 customers are not enough. A few articles you read on the web lately or a dozen of good ratings won't prove much either. Now, the reason I insist that you list down your hypothesis about why the product is going to be successful is because I've seen enough times what happens when you don't. I've seen entrepreneurs too often confuse assumptions with facts and embark on a journey that eventually results in a big failure because one of their fundamental assumptions about the market turns out to be wrong. You really don't want to waste the resources, money and time involved in designing, building, and launching a new product just to discover that the customers react differently than what you expected. Okay, So how do you frame your hypothesis about this new initiative? Framing your hypothesis. Listen to this story. I once went to an interview in a startup which just got funded and was very promising. The CEO introduced himself and immediately followed up with something in the spirit of the following. My business relies on 3 hypotheses. Here they are. 1. Nowadays people are, and then came his observation about current market trends. 2. In the very near future, and then came an hypothesis about how consumer habits are going to change in the very near future. And 3, and finally, another hypothesis about the very short term. So, if you agree with my hypothesis, he continued, then it's very clear what we are doing here holds a very huge potential. I like this approach very much. It was clear, to the point, and most of all, it was very obvious that if you believe his hypotheses are true, then the unavoidable conclusion is that he is working on the right thing and is probably going to be very successful. If executed properly, of course. Eventually, I didn't end up working there for other reasons, but I did adopt this method of thinking, which teaches you that you can also leverage job interviews to learn something new. Now, here are the steps you should follow. If you wish to be crystal clear, like the aforementioned CEO, about what hypothesis your new initiative relies on, you will need to follow these steps. Step 1. Write down with no filters. Write down all hypotheses that come to mind without any judgment. Don't disqualify any of them yet, as long as they are somewhat connected to your initiative. If you have a partner or a co-founder, this process must be done together with him or her or them. In fact, if you have more people you trust, could be your boss, peers, mentors, friends, or anyone with a relevant experience, invite them to provide their input and what are their assumptions about this new product that you want to build. Creating a comprehensive list is important for making sure the important assumptions about your new product or initiative are not missed out. Step 2. Clean the list. Now it's time to be critical about the list of hypotheses and narrow it down. First, eliminate any hypothesis about the product itself, such as important features or capabilities. You don't need those now, and you should trust yourself to figure out what your product needs as you get more input and feedback from users and customers. Now you need to focus on the opportunity itself. Besides, the product is fully under your control, unlike the market. You only want to prove hypotheses about the things you can't control. Second, remove hypotheses which are based too far in the future. For example, 3 years from now, most of the teaching materials in school will be digital. It could be true, but we need assumptions about the short-term period, trends that are already happening in the market and will get stronger in the coming months. If you rely on long-term trends, you may run out of budget before you make enough sales. Third, remove contradicting hypotheses. For example, if your product is aiming for the financial market and you believe your ICP is accountants, but your partner believes it's CFOs, you need to make an intelligent bet and get rid of one of those. Yes, you may discover later that you were wrong, but you need to be very focused at each step of your journey, and targeting 2 different personas will just create a huge defocus for you. Fourth, get rid of all hypotheses that you have little confidence in. After all, what's the point of working under an assumption you don't believe in? Now, if this is a key hypothesis which makes or breaks your new initiative, then you are in a real problem. We are probably talking about the project that was assigned to you by your company, but you have a little faith in. That's a problem that we are not going to solve now, but most likely is that you need to take a step back and talk about it with your boss. And maybe there is a close alternative that you do believe in. Step 3. Ensure proper coverage. By now you have a list of hypotheses about the market and the opportunity within this market. We need to make sure this list covers all your bases. So, A good list of hypotheses should have at least one hypothesis in each of these sections. 1. ICP. Who is your ideal customer? 2. Pains. What are the main pains of your ideal customer? 3. Market. Why now and whether the market is big enough? Another hypothesis that I like to add is what will make your product a must-have in this specific domain. After all, we don't wish to put all this effort just to be a nice-to-have. Being a nice-to-have means a product which is hard to sell, even if it remedies a real pain and provides value. Not because the customers don't want it, but rather because it will rarely become a priority for them to buy it. Now, going back to the list, you need to make sure that you have at least one hypothesis in any of these sections. Could be more than one about the market and the pains, for example. And once your list fulfills that, you are done. And by done, I mean that you have at your disposal a list of hypotheses that you should address as fast as you can. Proving or refuting your hypothesis. Great. So you have your list. Now what? Now it's the time to understand how you can prove or refute each of your hypotheses. Of course, we want to prove all of them, but you need to be ready for the possibility that one or more will be refuted. If it happens, it would be much better to know that at the beginning of your journey rather than later down the road after all kinds of investments were made. Now, some will tell you that you need to build an MVP for proving or refuting your hypothesis. Some will tell you that running an ads campaign will be more useful. And some will tell you that simply by talking to prospects who meet your ICP should be enough. The truth is that there is no single route that you must take. You need to apply your common sense and think out of the box. The question you need to ask yourself for each of your hypotheses is, what is the minimal effort required for proving or refuting it? Generally speaking, those are the options I'm familiar with, ordered from the least expensive one to the most expensive one. 1. Interviewing enough potential prospects who meet your profile. 2. Targeted ad campaigns combined with a landing page. 3. Interactive wireframes, and by that I mean UX and UI with no true logic behind it. And 4. A real MVP, a minimum viable product. Now, there could be different routes for different hypotheses. For example, if you assume that your ICP is CFOs of 10 million to 50 million ARR companies, then it could be enough to target this profile with ad campaigns and test different messages. If one of your ads get traction with this profile, and by traction I mean high enough CTR, it could be enough. You might decide it's not enough for proving the hypothesis, and therefore you want to raise the bar and require that those who clicked on an ad will end up setting up a sales call. However, if none of your ads gets enough traction, then it could mean one of the following. First, your assumption is wrong. Second, you didn't assign the task to someone who actually knows how to run ad campaigns. 3, none of the messages you phrased touches the real pain, meaning your ICP is indeed the CFO, but you were wrong about the pain. So, as you can see, this can get tricky quite fast. For each route that you choose, you need to make sure that your test is sterile as possible. My advice to you is as follows. 1. If you have a strong confidence that your assumption will be proven, define the MVP and make sure your engineering team starts working on it. However, you won't be waiting for them. Use the other methods outlined before to get more conviction. Personally, I like to combine them. Start with targeted ads and fill the funnel with potential prospects who agree to meet a salesperson. What do you demo during such a sales meeting? Well, it depends on the status of your MVP. If you have something working, use that. If not, fake it with interactive wireframes and hope it will be enough. Second, if you don't have enough confidence in the direction you are betting on, then better not waste the engineer's time and instead put them to work on something that you will definitely need regardless of the route that you will eventually choose. Promote other techniques in the meantime, as mentioned before. Recall that there is no single method that will be right all the time. Choose with brutal honesty the method to use for proving or refuting your hypothesis, and trust yourself to adjust if you still don't feel enough conviction about this direction. Addressing the results. There is a good chance that you'll understand where a specific effort is going even before the official definition of done. Trust yourself to put an end to a process if it exhausted itself. The real challenge here is to be fully honest with the results. If all of your hypotheses were proven successfully, then great, this is the easy path. You can proceed to a full-fledged MVP that you can actually sell. However, it is more likely that one or more of your hypotheses require some adjustments. Don't be discouraged by this. For example, it could be that your partner and you decided to bet on the CFO as the ideal customer profile, but as it seems from all the calls that you have attended, is that your bet was wrong. Fine. Adjust it based on your new understanding and start meeting the other persona. It's part of the game. Let's take a full example. This example will cover everything we discussed so far. So, let's imagine that you are a product manager in a company that provides online courses for youth that help them improve their performance in high school and be better prepared for college, university. The CEO comes to you one day and asks you to lead a new initiative to expand the company offering to elderly people as well. Great! When you ask your CEO about the why and the value, he says that it will open a huge market and that elderly people would like to learn new stuff too. The company has already proven itself to be successful with online courses delivery. They know how much it costs to produce such content, how much they should charge for this content, and how the overall lesson template should look like. Now, go and figure out the small details, will you? On the face of it, it doesn't sound too risky. Well, theoretically at least. You decided to listen to my advice and spend some time listing down the hypotheses behind the initiative. You came up with this. First, we know how much it costs to produce content for elders. 2, we know how much to charge elders for just such content. 3, we know how to craft an online lesson to elders in terms of general template and course structure. 4, elderly people want to learn new stuff too. And 5, online courses for older people represent a huge market. Okay, nice attempt, but the first iteration is not that great. Let's refine it. Assumption 1, 2, and 3 are about the product and not about the market. As I noted above, the product is something you control, the market is not. You will deal with the product soon enough. Assumption number 4, about elderly people wanting to learn new stuff too, is most likely true, but it is too general. Assumption number 5, about online courses representing a huge market, is also too general. Maybe there is a way to quantify this? Last, there is a missing assumption here, which may sound a bit similar to the third assumption, but it's not. I would phrase it like this. There is enough content out there that can be transformed to online courses and is relevant for elderly people. So, to wrap it all together, here is how I would phrase everything. People who have reached the retirement phase in life are open to learning new things and would be open to take online courses about things they are passionate about and didn't have the time to address during the time they worked full-time. Second, to maximize on this opportunity, the best age to target would be anyone from the retirement age up to the age of 75. 3. There is enough content out there that can be transformed to online courses which are phrased and relevant for elderly people. Fourth, the key to becoming something closer to a must-have for this audience is to target their passions and promise them that by taking the course with our company, they can easily become professionals about the things they are passionate about. And needless to say that we need to deliver on this promise. Now, assumption number 1 is probably the most critical, as it can really kill your business if it turns out to be wrong. Assumption number 4 about the must-have approach of targeting their passion addresses your growth rate of your business. If it turns out to be wrong, you may not grow as fast as you imagine and will fall in the category of being nice to have. This is the list I came up with after spending a few minutes on that. You can probably come up with a further refined list if you'll spend a bit more time. But you got the idea, right? So, let's summarize everything that we have learned today. Receiving the opportunity to work on a brand new product is an opportunity you definitely don't want to miss or screw up. Therefore, before you start working on a new product, it is strongly recommended to validate your assumptions about this new initiative. After all, building a product from scratch requires tons of efforts and time. You definitely don't want to put all these efforts and time in vain. The first step of the journey is to lay down everyone's assumption about the new initiative. Going through this list, cleaning it, and narrowing it down, as I've outlined before, will leave you with the list of hypotheses that you need to validate before moving forward. There is more than one method for validating assumptions, and you will need to use your brain combined with creativity and brutal honesty for understanding the path for cracking each of the assumptions on your list. Once you have agreed on how to tackle each of your hypotheses on your list, it's time to execute while being completely honest about what you encounter in reality. If all proven, great, move forward to an MVP. If some of your hypotheses were refuted, bummer, but it's part of the journey. Iterate until you understand who is your ICP, what is the pain you are solving for this persona, and whether this persona represents a big enough and interesting market. So, that would be all for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to like it and rate it. Thank you very much and good luck.